Your business exists because you had the idea to start it. Everything begins in our minds. That's why your business results cannot outgrow your current level of thinking. Do you want to serve more clients, make more money, without working more or burning yourself out? Grow yourself first as a leader of your business, because that's who you are, a leader, even if you're the only person in your business right now. When you lead yourself first, the business results will always follow. My name is Maggie. I'm an international business and leadership coach, an expert in business mindset, strategy, and high performance. I created the Diamond Effect podcast to help you elevate your thinking, expand your perspective, and through it, grow your business without overwhelm. So let's get started. Welcome, everybody, in the next episode of Diamond Effect Podcast. And this episode is a special one because I have a fabulous guest with me, Jennifer Estall, who is a managing partner of WSC Financial Solutions with a great story and a lot of wisdom to share with us. Jennifer, welcome. Thank you for doing it with me.
Thank you for having me.
So if you could, before we go into questions, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to everybody.
Sure. So you've already mentioned I'm a managing partner of WSC. So that is a holistic financial planning firm based in Oakville. I have a business partner. We have a team of about 12 that work with us, and we handle financial planning for all types of clients in Southern Ontario. Outside of work, I am a wife, I'm a mom, a daughter, friend, an amateur artist. When I get a chance, I'm in a pottery studio or a glass blowing studio, and just trying to find balance between running a business and running my life.
Yeah, I love it. We'll definitely talk about it, but I wouldn't say you're an amateur potter. I've seen your work. It's pretty good.
It's getting better.
So let's talk about your journey, because I think it's a great journey, and a lot of people will be able to learn from it and take nuggets of inspiration or wisdom from it. So if we can start at the beginning of your business, how did you get into the financial planning industry and the beginning of building your own practice?
Yeah, so I came into the industry by accident. It wasn't my first career choice. I went to school and started my career in hospitality. So I was a restaurant consultant. I used to go into restaurants, rework their budget, figure out where they were losing money, put systems in place to make them more profitable, and then move on. And with hospitality, it is 365 days a year, so it is nonstop. And I am a workaholic and a perfectionist, and that combination did not go well for me. So I was hospitalized twice for burnout in my 20s. And that made me realize that I needed to set some boundaries that I would be able to keep and enforce on my end. So I knew that getting out of hospitality was going to be important for me. So that made me reconsider what I wanted to do with my life. I had no idea what that next step would be. I thought that I might go into day trading on Bay Street because I had an honors commerce degree as a background, and the money side of the business always intrigued me. But it was actually when I was leaving the last restaurant I managed, I was calling around to my suppliers and letting them know who was going to replace me. And it was actually my advertising representative that had a cousin who was in financial services and asked if I wanted to have a conversation with him. And so I just went for a coffee and didn't know that meeting would make me start my own business and go out as an entrepreneur on my own. That was the first stage of things. I had to get licensed first, obviously. So I took some time and went through my exams, got licensed, and then opened my own practice as a financial advisor based out of Oakville.
So I love that, how sometimes we need to change industries knowing ourselves to create life that we love. So I love that at some point you recognize it, right? Some people recognize it faster than others, but you recognize that. And, how certain things just lead, one thing leads to another. And here you are, right? So many years later, still in financial industry. So as you started your own practice, of course, you grew it to where it is now. But tell me a little bit in the beginning, how did you find your first clients? How did you grow to the point where you needed help, and how that beginning type of help looked like for you?
Yeah. So it was definitely a different industry when I started. So it was 22 years ago. So very different world. When I started, I remember I'd rented an office out of a financial center in downtown Oakville. And I remember sitting at my desk in front of my computer, and I called a girlfriend and just said, I'm sitting in my office, but I have no idea what I do for a living. And I really didn't even know where to start. And it was one of the other advisors in the office that just said, you just need to get in front of people. So that's really what I tried to do in any way possible, was just have as many conversations with people as I could. It was harder in the beginning. I used to go and drive around new development areas and write down the name of street signs and then come back to my office and look up the phone numbers on Canada 411. And that became a call list for me. And I literally started cold calling and trying to have conversations about mortgage insurance is really where I started. That was horrible. Cold calling was not something that I loved. I remember on call nights, I would have a friend on standby that they knew that they were on call for me that night. Their sole job was every time I called, they had to answer the phone, be very uplifting and positive, cheer me on, but hang up within 2 minutes so that I wouldn't get distracted. So every 10 calls that people would yell at me or hang up on me or do things like that, I would call a girlfriend and she would cheer me on, and then I would make another 20 calls and kept doing that for probably a couple of years as I was building my practice. I was always very surprised when cold calling worked, like when I would actually call people and they would agree to meet with me just after randomly calling them. I had to keep doing it because it was working, but I also knew I didn't enjoy doing it. So I was trying every other aspect to get in front of people and build a clientele in the meantime. So whether that was welcome wagons or trade shows or networking groups, I would basically try anything in the first couple of years until I found what was more comfortable. And that became just finding referral partners that I could work with and build my business alongside.
So let's talk about cold calling. Yeah. I love that because I don't think majority of people enjoy it. Yeah, it's because you're putting yourself in front of rejection. As human beings, we just don't like to be rejected. It doesn't feel good and so on. But you did it for 2 years, no matter how hard it was. And I love how you created a little bit of a system for yourself to every 20 calls, I'll have a friend who just cheers me up. But what else, if you look back, what else motivated you to keep going for 2 years until you figured out other, let's say, marketing strategies that worked for you?
I think it was twofold. So first, sadly, it was working. So I was getting the meetings, I was getting in front of people, I was having conversations. So that's what I needed to do. And then also, I did feel that sense of satisfaction for the clients that I was meeting. I was helping them. Like, I know I was making a difference, whether it was getting proper protection in place for their family or saving them money, or I believed in the product, I believed in the service that I was offering. So the combination of the fact that it was actually helping me to build clients and build a business, and it was genuinely helping those clients, I think that was the push that kept going. But I definitely knew I wanted to find another way to get that satisfaction from a client standpoint that didn't involve calling.
And that's the thing. In the beginning, we might not have a lot of money and resources, but we have all the time in the world because we don't have a lot of clients to serve, right? Like how you use that time matters, because then once you start signing more and more clients, now you're more resourced to maybe do some other things that are not cold calling and walk away from the tactics that maybe either require too much of your time or just you don't like them. Okay, so then you're growing and you're at a point where you need some help, but maybe you can't afford like a full-time employee. So how did you solve for that?
That I would say was pure luck when it came my way. So it was actually my business partner now built my practice. I think I was probably 4 years in. I was growing every year. Everything was working well, but I had hit that point where it was that catch-22. Like I needed to hire someone to take my business to the next level, but I couldn't afford to hire that person until my business was at that next level.
Yeah.
I actually got a call out of the blue from my now business partner, and he just called and said, okay, we both grew up in Oakville. We're both advisors with the same firm. We're both members of the same service club. So we're both Rotarians. And he just said, I don't know how we haven't met. Do you want to go out for lunch? And so I said, sure. And we went out for lunch. Explained a little bit about where I was in my career and the fact that I needed some administrative support. He was already a partner in a very successful financial planning firm. Their biggest concern was looking for succession planning. So one of their partners was looking to retire. So he was always looking for sort of that next possible advisor that might be a potential fit as a partner. And so we agreed to join in an alliance. And my major need was the administrative support and mentoring, and their major need was that potential partner down the line. So I moved my practice into their office and started renting space from them instead of the financial center that I was in. And that rental agreement came with, I think I started with an hour a day of administrative support because they had capacity on their team. They had already hired trained assistants that I could just tap into right away. So it was just like a plug and play, and I didn't have to go through the hiring and training process and figure that all out. So it actually worked out perfectly for both. And then as my business started growing more, and with that support, then I ramped up from an hour a day to 2 hours to 3 hours until eventually I had full-time support.
Love it. So then you keep growing and you become a partner, right, in the firm. So tell us more about that, going into partnership and scaling from there. Part of your role must have changed being a partner. There were, I'm sure, some challenges with scaling. So talk about first maybe how your role changed and some major challenges with scaling and how you overcame them.
Yeah. So there definitely were some challenges in the first few years. Probably most of them stemmed from a lack of confidence on my end. So I did buy into the partnership. So they had asked me a few times to buy in, but in the meantime, I had gotten married. We had bought a new house. Everything just didn't fit in my personal life. So finally, after, I think we were in the alliance for 3 years before I actually bought into the practice. So how it happened, I actually sold my business to the firm and then but I bought in as a minority shareholder. So it shifted the dynamics of the firm. Previously, there were 3 male partners, equal ownership, and I bought in as the first female partner as a minority shareholder. So there were definitely some dynamics to sort through as to who had decision-making authority, who was going to be responsible for different areas of the business. The one benefit that I did bring into the firm is that my ideal client profile was an area that they actually did not want to focus on very much. So a lot of my practice had focused on group benefits for small to medium-sized businesses. They had a significant block of group benefits, but none of them enjoyed that market. So they had outsourced someone to manage that. So when I came in, I took over the management of our group benefit division, which was an area that I was definitely able to provide some leadership in. But it was a little bit, I don't want to say rocky, but it was interesting in the first few years with that many personalities and me definitely being newer in the business. My 3 partners at the time had, I think, combined close to 80 years experience in the industry. So they were very well seasoned. And I think my confidence in recommending different opportunities for the business or different growth aspects, I didn't feel as confident in putting those forward, but that definitely changed. We went through a little bit of a corporate restructuring and the first shifted from an ownership level. And that's when I really started to lean into more of that leadership role.
So if you can tell me more, because I think as women, especially, we do struggle with confidence more maybe than men in general, right? Yes, there's always exceptions, but I think as women, we question ourselves more. We question our expertise. We want to be talking about perfectionists. We want to be 100% prepared. Otherwise, we don't feel competent. Whereas with male, and that studies show that it's not the case, right? Men feel more confident, even if they're not as prepared as us or not as qualified as us. And so what helped you build up the confidence, and how did you deal with maybe some doubts and challenges as you were buying into the partnership and kind of establishing yourself as a leader in the firm?
I think part of it just came with time. Other parts just came with experience. Like I knew that the ideas that I had, that there was value in them, there was merit to them for the business. I think what probably gave me, I would say 2 areas probably gave me the most confidence was first, just having a network of phenomenal, supportive females in my life that were also running financial planning practices or small businesses, and really just being able to bounce ideas off of that. And if I was presenting an idea at one of our executive meetings, I might run it past one of them first just to say, is there an angle I'm not thinking of, or what could be the fallout, or And so that was very helpful. But then also the business partner that I have now, who was one of the three partners, was very encouraging. So he very much believed in the vision that I had for the firm and how I wanted to grow the business, knew and recognized that I was going to be the growth for the business, that he and the other partners were the ones that were going to be retiring and stepping back. And so really wanted to lean into strengthening how I had perceived the vision for the firm. So that was very helpful to have that secondary vote of support at the executive level.
I love that. And the firm grew because I've known you for like only 5 years. And I know that even for the past 5 years, the firm has grown, but I'm sure that over 22 years, it has grown under your leadership. So can you boast a little bit? Can I ask you to boast and how the firm grew? Because I think it's important for people, and even for women listening, that sometimes when we're not confident doesn't mean we can't achieve things and our ideas are valid. And if we just lean into it and push through the doubts, we can achieve great things. And you have. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we definitely have grown substantially. I would say more than tenfold in the last couple of years, even. So we are considered one of the top providers for the dealer that we work with. But I think part of that growth has been, it's definitely been strategic. We have gone through some acquisitions in the past. We've also broken apart our firm. So when we grew in a direction that didn't feel consistent with our values, we recognized that, okay, maybe we need to trim off a part of the business in order to grow in the area that we wanted to. So even though we've grown over tenfold in the last few years, we've split off the business twice. And that has resulted into other very successful businesses that have spun out of WSC. I likened it at one point to, and I'm not a gardener by any means, but to like pruning or replanting a plant. Like we grew too big that we were going to end up just withering away if we tried to stay all together. But when we could separate that plant and plant it in two smaller containers, they could both grow and grow much bigger and faster than if we had tried to force it all together. I think that's been very helpful, is to know when you need to scale back, when you need to redirect, and then you can, looking back after both of those transitions, the firm is so much stronger and so much more profitable as a result of trimming off a portion of the business that was no longer serving.
I love that. And you're right. It's normal for us to, as we grow, to sometimes take opportunities. And then down the line, you realize, okay, maybe that's not in alignment anymore with the vision and values that we have and so on. So if you look back, what were the signs or what helped you and your partners determine that, okay, we are not going in the right direction, even though you were growing and maybe from the financial perspective, everything was fine? Yeah. So what were the signs that helped you pause and say, okay, we need to change direction, right? We need to do something different.
So I think in both scenarios, it came down to a partner, a shareholder with a different vision for the firm. When the core values of leadership don't align, there is a split. In our case, at least, couldn't be mended. It was better to keep the integrity of the firm, to keep the values of the firm, to make sure that we were able to separate out the shareholder that no longer aligned with those values. And I think having a very strong sense of who you want to be as a business owner and what you want your firm or your company to stand for is very helpful. And that took a lot of coaching, a lot of support to understand, okay, what do we want the business to look like? What are our non-negotiables? And when you put everything through the lens of these are non-negotiable, it makes it a lot easier to make those decisions.
I agree. And it's really I guess this part of the story is the testament of how important, right, it is to be aligned, to be very clear on what is it that you stand for, what is it that you're trying to achieve, and how it can help you in making some very important strategic moves as your business grows.
One of our core values is collaboration and better together. Yeah. When we got to a point where we were no longer better together, it was a very easy decision to then split off. No one was right or wrong. It just meant that if we weren't better together, then we should not be together, and we can both move on and grow our firms in the way that feels most comfortable.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so now let's talk about building a team, because now, of course, you have a team of 12 people. How do you find great people? And maybe some like hiring lessons that you've accumulated over the years that you can share with the audience and they can learn from your mistakes or your lessons.
I would say that the managing of a team or of people has definitely been the hardest part of building a business. So it's a little bit of a disconnect because I'm running the business, I'm building the team, but I'm also actively in the business. So working in the business as a financial planner. So those two skill sets are very different. I do have a fantastic operations director and always have for the firm. So that's definitely an area that we invested in. It's something that not a lot of financial practices necessarily have because it is a financial commitment, but she is our first point of contact from an HR perspective or from a growth perspective. But I think when we're looking to build the team, I'm learning to do this a little bit more for myself, but definitely for our team. So we're always taking a look at where our pain points are. So where do we have bottlenecks? What seems to be the holdup? Where are we least creative, least able to solve problems? And that's usually where we need the most support. We as a firm have always had a philosophy of trying to keep our team at 85% capacity. So we don't want to be running everybody at their maximum and risking burnout or risking mistakes. If we stay around that 85% maximum, then we are more creative. We're able to problem solve. We're able to take on new opportunities if an acquisition came across our plate. So we have a little bit of room to pivot. So I think what we're always doing is making sure that we're in touch with the team, finding out where they are, always trying to be more efficient and improve. But if we see that there's an area of the business that the team's operating at 90, 95% or 100%, they just can't clear their desks, they're always pushing into the next week, then we know that it's probably time to hire again. And that has always helped us grow the business. So we probably hire a little bit earlier, but then it usually is only a matter of a few months before that hire has turned into the ability to generate more revenue.
It's a great lesson for everybody. And I truly believe it's a great philosophy because, first of all, when you're hiring a little bit ahead of time, you're not desperate hiring. And for me, from my experience hiring people, desperate hiring like 99% of the time does not work because you're cutting corners and then you're bringing the wrong people into the business. And then second of all, as you say, when your people are running on fumes or 100% capacity, they can't be creative. They can't take on new things. Like one of the reasons I burned out in my corporate career is because the company took on new business without allocating. And we were running at 9,500% capacity. So not only without considering that the people who would have to bring that business on and make it work already had full-time jobs and it wasn't 85% capacity, but on top of it, they didn't even allocate new resources. And that just crushed us over the period of 6 months. Having that foresight and having that role, I love that. And I think everybody should learn from it. And it's
an investment. Yeah, it is an investment, but I think it over the last decade or more, it has definitely proved to be a profitable investment. And happier employees are more productive employees as well. So it just creates an environment that hopefully is much more productive and enjoyable to work in.
And also because I know, and let's talk about that and we'll go into that work-life balance and how you handle it. But first, for overall for the firm, you guys work 4.5 days, right? So like you had half of the Fridays all year round. You finish at noon.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. Was it always like that? Did you guys come up with that decision? How did it work for you?
I can't remember now if it was pre-COVID or post-COVID that we made that shift. But we wanted to entertain just a greater balance for the team. We, at the time, had a lot of parents on the team as well. And just being able to have time for yourself when there aren't kids out of school or on the weekends and you're going across to activities, to be able to go and see a chiropractor or your doctor or to just have an hour to go for a walk on your own or things along those lines. We just wanted to give a little bit more time back to the team. because we are financial services, we couldn't take a whole day off because we have to be available for placing trades or to our clients. But we found our clients were very receptive of that 4.5-day work week. And obviously, both myself and my partner were available if there are emergencies, but there are very few Friday afternoon emergencies that we find with clients. It's been a great work-life balance shift for the team. It's also been really helpful in hiring. It's a very attractive value proposition. So we definitely didn't adjust salaries at all. Like it was the same salary, just with a reduced hour. And post-COVID, we have kept a hybrid working model as well. So our team is in office together from Tuesday through Thursday. And then Monday and Friday mornings, they work remote. So I think that's also added to that work-life balance to be able to be home for deliveries if you're getting a new appliance delivered or something along those lines, like knowing that they can schedule some of those personal priorities on Mondays and Fridays, and then everybody is in office so that we can work on the collaboration and the culture of the team coming together.
I love that because I think we swung a bit on the other extreme before COVID because after COVID right now, because before COVID, there were not everybody, but even in my corporate world, when I still worked in COVID, before COVID, I had employees who worked hybrid just because of business continuity and work-life balance and having a value proposition for the employees, right, for retention and so on. And it worked really well. And then, of course, during COVID, everybody had to go, or most of us had to go inside, in a home. And now we're swinging to 5 days, or some businesses swing back to 5 days a week, where that wasn't even the case before COVID. And I think that's once people gotten used to and created certain habits, or as you say, even delivery or something simple, it hurts, right? So I don't see how that benefits a business to completely go the other way and not find this more balanced approach depending on the needs of the business and whatever.
Yeah, I think the hybrid approach really does work for us. We have full trust in our team that when they're home, they're working. That's never been a concern for us. I know some companies want to micromanage and see what employees are doing. I have zero doubt that our team is working just as they would here when they are at home. But I do find that there is a lot more sharing when it is in office. So that's why I find that a few days a week that we do come in together, there are so many more questions that people will ask if they can just call across the hall versus typing an email or doing something along those lines. So I find the shares and that collaborative approach is much more effective in person, but then balancing that off with the efficiency of being able to work from home is I think, a good hybrid. I don't see us ever swaying from that on either end of the spectrum.
Okay, so now let's talk about balancing motherhood and owning a successful business. We're both moms.
Yeah.
And you ran your business. And before you were mom, I started my business while I was mom. So how do you balance it? Because you have a demanding role, the business has grown, right? And let's be real, as the business grows and becomes more complex, there's more demand, especially on CEO, managing partner, however you want to call it. So how have you been balancing that?
Yeah. So first of all, I dislike the word balance because I don't think I'm ever feeling in balance. So I think I'm very fortunate that I have a partner that's a stay-at-home father. So that has been a huge relief to me because I'm not the point parent who is doing drop-off or making lunches or pickups, and that is all taken care of. But the emotional side of it is much more difficult, I would say, to try and find that balance. But I was given, and I wish I could remember who gave me this advice when I first had my daughter, was that there is no such thing as balance, that you have to be comfortable in the decision that you make every day and make every day a conscious decision. So we only have 100% of ourselves that we can give, and that can't change. So you could be 100% mom and be killing it and making homemade cupcakes from scratch and being there on school trips and doing whatever. But then that means you have nothing left to give to your business. So each morning, it's a conscious decision. Okay, today I'm 75% in as a business owner and 25% as a mom, which might mean I'm there for dinner and bedtime, but that's it. I'm putting in a full 8 or 10 hour day at the office. But then being a business owner, I have the luxury of being able to switch that and saying, okay, no, today I'm dialing it up as a mom. And that means that I'll answer emails if they're on fire and that they need something immediately. But I'm spending the rest of the day with my daughter. It's really making that conscious decision and then allowing yourself not to feel guilty for it, that there is nothing wrong with wanting to dial it up at business. And this week I've left the house every day before my daughter was awake. So I'll go in and kiss her before I leave. But yeah, I'm missing breakfast. I have no idea what she's wearing to school today, if her clothes match or what snacks are packed. And I have to be okay with that. And obviously have a partner that I know is taking care of it. So I'm very fortunate that way.
Yeah, I love that. And I use the word balance maybe because I don't know any other one. I have a client who actually, we just did a podcast interview on her podcast and she calls it integration. I'm like, oh, you know what? That's actually a good word, how to integrate work and personal life in a way that works for you. So that's why for me, balance doesn't mean equal time every one. It means more. Yeah, how do I integrate both personal life and business life in a way that I'm satisfied with, right? Yeah. And that doesn't mean that we'll always, as mom, I think we have that guilt like, oh, I'm supposed to be with my kids all the time. I'm supposed to do crafts and whatever. But it's one. And then sometimes that guilt will come in. But I'm the same like you. I'm like, okay, I think about how do I want to show up as a mom, and crafts and baking is not one of those. And I'm just okay with that decision. But there's other areas when I show up, whether it's dance competition, whether it's coaching my kids through their challenges and so on in their life, because it's important for me for them to grow into independent, kind, but also good human beings with social skills and so on. And I'll put more focus on that than, let's say, maybe doing crafts with them. And at the same time, allocate time for some quality time, whatever that looks like. Because it's also important to me to build the business and help people that way. I'm definitely not a person who would stay home 100% of the time. And for those people who are, that's great, but it's not me. And I just acknowledge that.
And I think more women need to vocalize that, because I would be a horrible stay-at-home mom. Like that it's just not who I am, and it's not what my daughter needs. And I know that, but it took me a while to feel comfortable with that. And I think it's important that my daughter sees me and the impact that I'm making building a business and with my clients. And that's an important role for her to see as well. But I always used the example of my husband is built to be a stay-at-home dad. Like, we live about a 5-minute walk from the park, and he would take 47 minutes with her to walk from our house to the park, because that's how slow she wanted to go, or if she found a bug that she wanted to follow on the way. Whereas my personality is very much a type A. I'd be like, no, we'll play when we're at the park. Let's go. It takes 5 minutes to get there. And so she is a better, more well-rounded child or human because she has both of us and could see both styles in her life. And me trying to force myself to be someone that could take 47 minutes to walk to the park, like, that wouldn't be authentic.
I agree. And that's, for me, that's also when I think about my kids, it's I want them to have a deep relationship with other family members or with their friends, right? I don't need to be there with them 24/7 as a mom, because it's also important for them to learn how to be on their own and take care of themselves, how to spend time with their friends, and and develop individual relationships, whether it's with their dad, and we're immigrants, so we don't have close family here. But whenever that's possible, have a relationship with their grandparents, their cousins, and so on. And I don't have to be part of it, because that's their life, not mine, in a way.
No, absolutely.
All right. So now let's talk about your philosophy around, say, self-care, self-development. I know you are big on self-development and self-care, and that helps you stay well-rounded or balanced, or however you want to call it. So if you could expand on that.
Yeah. So I think when we first had my daughter, it was, I was a little bit terrified, because I was never the kid that grew up like desperately wanting to be a mom. That was never, there are some kids that played with dolls and did whatever, and that was their purpose in life. And that was not me until later in life. And then there was a definite fear of just hearing, and I don't know if it's a martyr syndrome or whatever, just hearing like how many women lose themselves when they become a mother. And I would say being a mother is the most important title that I have in my life, but it's not my only. So I think I probably leaned into the self-care and prioritization actually more when I became a mom, which probably sounds counterintuitive to most people out there, because that's usually the time where they lose themselves as opposed to lean into themselves. But it was really important for me that I give so much of myself for my business, and I wanted to give everything of myself to be a mom, but I didn't want to lose myself at the same time. Yeah. So that's where I really leaned in. I started changing things, like I didn't make New Year's resolutions. Instead, in December every year, I would plan out the year by choosing one thing per month for myself, and I would put it in the calendar first. So that was happening first, whether it was dinner with girlfriends or a concert or an art class or something, that had to go in first. And so I was making sure that there was always something within a 4-week period that I was doing for myself, just to learn or to grow or to create, and that has been very helpful. And then I started doing actually before my daughter even. I take a trip by myself every year. And that might sound a little over the top to some, but it's never long. It's always to the same. I go to a wellness retreat in Northern Ontario. It is magic to me. It resets me as a human. And it's usually 3 to 5 nights that I'll go away. But even my daughter now knows if I'm starting to get really, really overwhelmed or whatever, she'll ask when I'm going back up there next, because she knows when
you can be a better mom.
I'm always more grounded, calm. And so that's been ideally, I shouldn't get to a point where I have to go and reset myself, but that is just a luxury that I've afforded to myself, to make sure that I'm checking in fully with myself. And I think it's important to go alone, because I have zero expectations on me when I'm away. I'm not worried about somebody else having a good time or anything else. I'm just going solely for restorative time on my own.
Yeah. And you know what? I love that you had that foresight. And I think we don't talk enough about it, or at least I never had a conversation about it. I really didn't know what it is, what you're getting yourself into by being a parent, other than just my own observations, which are usually skewed because you see your parents, but that's subjective because you're a child, or others in very small periods of time. And I did partially lose myself, which then what it resulted in is me not being the mom that I wanted to be for my kids, because I was losing patience, I wasn't grounded. And when I realized that, I'm like, that cannot happen, because I want to be the best mom I can. I want to show up the best I can, not only for them, but for my partner, for my work. And self-care was what allowed me to do that. I always say I've never been on the list. So putting myself on the list and then putting myself higher, not in number 100, but actually higher, where I get to do the things that allowed me to feel grounded and so on, completely changed how I show up and what I'm able to accomplish on both sides. But you're right that we're being socialized as women that putting ourselves on the list and taking self-care somehow is selfish, whereas it's not. It actually allows us to be so much better in whatever we do.
I have a lot of people on a daily, weekly basis that depend on me. So whether it's one of my staff on the team, whether it's my parents, friends, my husband, my daughter, if I'm not okay, I can't be there for any of them. So I really do look at it as it's actually a responsibility to myself to take care of myself, because otherwise I'm letting 30 people that I love down. So it's, if you can shift your mindset that way as a need to be there for the people in your life, I think it allows a little bit less of that guilt or that feeling of indulgence. And it's just a fact that you have to show up for yourself first.
Yeah, you know what? I think of it as maintenance, right? If you have the most expensive car, or even, let's say you bought a racing horse, this Arab horse that costs you like millions of dollars, but it also making you millions of dollars. And it's would you run it to the ground? Never.
Yeah. No.
You would take care of it and give it everything it needs to function at the highest level.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we do it for ourselves? And for us, part of it is self-care and being able to ground yourself outside of just nutrition and sleep and other things.
Yeah.
So before we finish, 2 things. First, if you could tell people how they can find you, learn more about your firm, connect with you.
Yeah. So our firm again is WSC Financial Solutions. So we're based out of Oakville, Ontario. You can definitely check out our website, which is in the process of being rebranded. So in the next few weeks, it will be shiny and new and wonderful. But also on LinkedIn, I'm just there as myself. So Jennifer Estall or WSC Financial Solutions. We are there on socials as well. But I would say the LinkedIn is probably the best way to get me.
I will follow you on Instagram. Yeah, I see you
very soon. It's being built in the background right now.
Great. And we'll link up in the show notes, all those links. And then to finish, what would be some words of wisdom that you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I would probably just say, and this might sound fairly basic, but trusting your intuition. I think where I have swayed too far off of my path or the vision or the values of our firm is when I doubted myself and didn't trust my intuition. And I would say surrounding yourself with people that build you up and that makes it easier for you to hear your own voice. I have a phenomenal group of women that are very supportive of me, where I can ask a question, but as I'm asking it, I have the space and the comfort just to be who I am and be authentically myself. And even just asking the question into a room of such support, I already know the answer by the time I finish asking the question, just because I've been given the space to just trust myself. And so just knowing that your instinct is enough, and knowing that no matter what the challenge faced in front of you, I can't remember who said this quote, but your track record of getting through hard things is 100%. Like, you're still here. So there is nothing that has been presented in front of you that you haven't been able to get through. So facing any obstacle or a challenge with that in mind, I think just what allows you to make some braver choices. And yeah, there's ultimately nothing that can't be fixed. So mistakes are an opportunity for growth. And I think if we get too comfortable, we stop growing. So I've learned to fear comfort more than embrace it. Anytime something feels comfortable, that's an unsettling feeling for me, because that means that I'm stagnant or that I'm not pushing myself to be better. So always trying to improve and lean into the discomfort will, I think, get you farther in the long run.
I love it. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening today. If this podcast resonated with you, please come back. Also, you can leave a review on whatever platform you're listening. And if you have a suggestion, question, or a topic you would like me to talk about, let's get in touch via email. Email me at Maggie@stairwaytoleadership.com. See you in the next episode.